Hi, it's Storm from Ninja Bunny Crochet. Today I have for us to do the second part of our little crochet-along. This is the keyhole scarf. So here is one of the examples, and here's the little hole to put your end in. So you can just take the other end of the scarf and it goes through the hole, just like this. And this part is the part that goes around your neck. And that is how you would wear the keyhole scarf. So here is the example in the camo color. And we'll put this one aside. And then I have another one here in this brown color. And one in this nice purple. And in the blue and gray, and here's the keyhole, and black and white and gray, and then here's the one with the solid stripe, because we have, if you remember the hat that had the solids in it, and here's the matching scarf for that as well. So we're going to put these aside and bring our camera down. And this was the hat that we were working on. So now we're going to make the matching keyhole scarf to this hat. So let me break out all the yarn and the hooks and everything that you'll need to make your matching scarf. You're going to want your matching yarn. You're going to want your leftover multicolor from your hat plus another full skein. So in this case we're using Red Heart Super Saver. In the multicolors come in the 5-ounce skein, 141 grams, 236 yards, or 215 meters. This is a medium 4 worsted weight yarn. It is 100% acrylic. This particular color is called Macaw. And then you're going to want your matching solid color. Again, I'm using Red Heart Super Saver. The solid colors come in a 7-ounce skein, 198 grams, 364 yards, or 333 meters. Again, it is a medium 4, 100% acrylic yarn. You are only going to need maybe an ounce of the solid color for your scarf. You just want the color to match the same as your hat because we're doing a set. So once you have your yarn, you're going to want to know what hook size. So we're going to be using an I 5.5 millimeter hook. Today I'll be using my Clover Amour hook. And let's just slide these up a little bit here so that we can have room. You're going to want a yarn needle to weave in your ends, a stitch marker or 2, and a pair of scissors. Once you have all your supplies, let's get started. Before we jump into today's tutorial, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, that little icon down in the corner there with my picture on it. That'll automatically subscribe you to my channel. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know that you like my videos. And don't forget to ring that bell because that'll notify you whenever I upload a video. So to start our keyhole scarf, we're going to want to start with a slip knot on our hook, and we're going to do a chain of 152. So just keep chaining with your main color, so in this case it's going to be our multicolor, until you get a chain of 152. Once you have that chain of 152, come on back and we'll get started. Now that we have our chain of 152, we're going to start second chain from hook. So 1, 2, and we're going to flip our chain over and we're going to be working in these back bars of the chain. So go 1, 2 into that second chain and we're going to start with a single crochet. And we're going to work one single crochet into each stitch all the way down the chain. So for row 1, it's just single crochet, and it's one single crochet into each chain. So just take your time and put one single crochet into that back bar of the chain all the way down the chain. Now if you have trouble working in the back bar, you can work into the chain the traditional way. You'll just have to remember when you're doing your border that you're going to be working into the opposite side of the chain. So continue working single crochet down the chain, and I'll meet back up with you at the end of this row. We're at the end of row 1. We now have 151 single crochet. To start row 2, we're going to chain up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is where we're going to need our stitch marker. Count up 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and place your stitch marker. This is where your last stitch in the row returning, you're going to want to put your last stitch in that mark stitch. So that's why we're going to mark that chain. Turn the work. And this chain 4 is going to count as a double crochet chain 1. So this very first stitch right here is worked because this counts as that stitch. We're going to skip the next stitch, and in the next one, which is right here, we're going to start our first cluster stitch. This one right here. So we're going to yarn over the hook, insert into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook, and we're going to repeat that 2 more times. Yarn over, insert into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over the hook, insert back into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We now have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops on the hook, and then chain 1. And that is our first cluster stitch. Skip the next stitch, go into the next one, and we're going to repeat that. Yarn over, insert into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, back into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, back into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1 to complete the stitch. I'll show you that one more time. Skip the next stitch, go into the next one, yarn over, insert into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, back into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, one more time, four loops on the hook, yarn over, and pull through all 4 loops, and chain 1 to complete the stitch. Continue working the cluster stitch until you get to the last stitch, and I'll meet back up with you at the end of the row. We're at the end of row 2. We have 2 stitches left. We've made our last cluster stitch, chain 1. We're going to skip the next stitch, and in the last stitch we're going to place a double crochet. So at the end of row 2, we now have 74 cluster stitches. To start row 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn the work. In the top of that double crochet, place a single crochet in that first chain space right there, a single crochet. In the top of the first cluster stitch, and you can tell you're in the top of the stitch by just slightly tugging on it, and you'll see that little triangle come out, and that's where you place your single crochet. In between the two cluster stitches is the chain space, and that's where you place your next single crochet. And then in the top of the next cluster stitch, you can see the triangle, and in the chain space. Again, the next cluster stitch, and the chain space. And you're going to continue working single crochet in the cluster stitch, in the top of the cluster stitch, and in the chain space, all the way down the row till you get to the end of the row, and I will meet back up with you at the end of the row to show you how to end the row. Alright, we're at the end of row 3. This is our last cluster stitch, so we're going to do a single crochet on the top of it. And then here's our chain 4, so we're going to do a single crochet into that chain space, and then where our marked chain is, we're going to do a single crochet into that marked chain. So we take our stitch marker out, and into that chain we're going to do a single crochet, so it would be single crocheting into the top of the double crochet. And that ends row 3, and you should have a 151 single crochet. From here to row 8, we're going to be repeating row 2 and 3. So for 4 to 7, you're going to repeat row 2, 3, 2, 3, and then row 8 is going to be a repeat of row 2. So go for row 4, 5, 6, 7, it's a repeat of row 2, 3, 2, and 3. And that's going to be 2 times to get to row 4 to 7. And then you'll be at row 8, and you're going to repeat row 2 one more time. Once you reach row 8, I'll meet back up with you. We're at the end of row 8. We still have 74 clusters. To start row 9, we're going to chain 1 and turn the work. We're going to start with a single crochet in that first stitch and a single crochet in that first chain space. Now for the next 16 cluster stitches, we're going to single crochet in the top of the cluster and into the chain space. So we're going to do that for the next 16 clusters. In the top of the cluster and in the chain space. So that's 2 clusters. Three, 4, 5, 15, and 16. Then we're going to single crochet in the next cluster, on the top of the next cluster, and then we're going to chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11. And we're going to skip the next 5 clusters, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the next cluster stitch we're going to single crochet in the top of that cluster stitch, and in the next chain space single crochet. So that leaves our keyhole space. We're going to continue single crocheting into the top of the cluster stitches and in the chain space until the end of the row. I will meet back up with you at the end of the row. We're at the end of row 9. We now have 140 single crochets and 11 chain stitches. To start row 10, we're going to chain up 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to put our stitch marker in that third chain, 1, 2, 3, so that'll be easier to find it on the way back, and turn the work. That first stitch is already worked. We're going to skip the next stitch, and we're going to start with a cluster stitch in that next stitch. So we yarn over, insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, 4 loops left on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then we chain 1. So then we're going to keep repeating our cluster stitch for 52 times, and that should bring us up to the chain space. Once we get to the chain space, I'll meet back up with you. I've made it all the way up to the chain. I did my cluster stitch right before the chain on this last cluster above the chain. So we're going to skip the first chain right here. We're going to skip this chain and we're going to go to the next chain, and we're going to put a cluster stitch into that chain. So just like you would a regular cluster stitch, just right into that chain. Skip the next chain and go to the next and do another cluster stitch. Skip the next chain, which is right there, and go to the next one and make a cluster. Again, skip the next chain, go to the next one, and another cluster. Again, skip the next chain, and a cluster. We're going to skip that last chain right there, that very last chain, and we're going to go into the top of the next cluster stitch to do the next cluster. look here, and if you lay down your work, your clusters should line right up with the row below, just like that. If your clusters are not lining up, just go ahead and frog them back and make sure you're skipping every other chain. So continue working the cluster stitch by skipping the next stitch and working into the next, just like you were, till you get to the end of the row. And I'll meet back up with you at the end of the row. We're at the end of row 10. We now have 74 cluster stitches. For row 11 through 16, we're going to repeat row 3 and 2. And that'll be a repeat of row 3 and 2. We're going to do that 3 times, and that'll get you to row 16. Then for row 17, repeat row 3 one more time. So again, we're going to repeat row 3 and 2 for row 11 through 16. Then row 17 is a repeat of row 3. So continue working the repeat rows of 3 and 2, 3 and 2, 3 times, then repeat row 3 one more time, and I'll meet back up with you at the end of row 17. So at the end of row 17, we have 151 stitches. We're going to go ahead and fasten off our multicolor because we are all done with that. And we're going to get our border color out. So let's get our multicolor away, and let's get our border color out. So here is our light blue for our border color. And how we're going to start this is we're going to go ahead and turn the work. And we're going to attach our light blue to that first stitch. So go ahead and pull that up and attach it with a slip stitch. Go ahead and chain 1. Now you can work over this tail or you can weave it in later. We're going to go ahead and put a single crochet right into that first stitch, and we're going to work 1 single crochet into every stitch all the way across this row right here, row 17. Just put 1 single crochet. We're going to work all the way around the entire scarf. So when you get to the end of the row, I will meet back up with you to show you how to work the corner and the end of the scarf. Okay, we're at the end of the row. We have 1 last stitch, and in that last stitch, because it's the corner, we're going to put 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. That'll help us round the corner. Turn the work so that the corner is, so the side is facing up, and then each one of these double crochets on the end, we're going to put 2 single crochets. Now you can work them into the stitch just like that, or you can work them around the stitch. I think it's just as easy to work it around the stitch. So we're going to put 1, 2, and then into the single crochet row, we're just going to put 1 single crochet. So go 1, 2, and then 1. And we're going to work that all the way across the ends of the row till we get to the other side of the scarf. Since we're almost there, we're just going to keep working it. And now we've come to the end, and now we're going to put 3 single crochets into that first stitch on the opposite side, or the opposite side of the starting chain. So in that first stitch, since we worked into the back loop, it's going to look like stitches. So we're going to go ahead and put 3 single crochets into that first stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Turn the work up, and we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of those stitches along the opposite side of the chain. Now if you didn't work into that back loop in your starting chain, you're just going to have the free loops. If you worked into the back loop, you're going to have what looks like stitches. So just work 1 single crochet into each one of those stitches until you get to the end of the row, and then you're going to put 3 single crochets into the last stitch to work around the corner. Work the ends of the rows just like you did here. When you come back to the beginning, I'll meet back up with you at the very end. Alright, I made it all the way back to the beginning, and in this very first stitch here, we're going to go ahead and put 2 single crochets in there since we started with just 1. And then we're going to slip stitch to the first single crochet that we made and fasten right off. And we can weave these ends in just a little bit. Well, we need to do the keyhole. So we need to bring up our scarf so we can get our keyhole. So here is the keyhole, and we're going to get our solid color, and we're going to work single crochet around the keyhole. So here are our regular stitches, and these are the underside of the chain. So we're just going to go ahead and attach our yarn with a slip stitch, chain 1, and work a single crochet right back into that same stitch, and work over our tail, or you can weave it in afterwards, either way. And then just work 1 single crochet into each stitch. Like I said, I'm going to be working over that tail for just a couple of stitches. Just like that. I'm going to pull that to the inside and continue working my way around the keyhole. I don't necessarily have a specific number of stitches, just whatever number of stitches are there, I'm going to work my single crochets. And you're going to work all the way around and slip stitch to join. Just continue working your single crochets, slip stitch to that first single crochet, and weave in your tails. And then you'll be complete. So I'll finish this off camera and I'll be right back. Here's our finished scarf, and just like I showed in the beginning with our other example, we just put the end through the keyhole, just like that. So that's what your scarf would look like. And here's our matching hat from the previous video. So if you like this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to ring that bell. Thanks for watching, and happy crocheting! Bye-bye!